Ladies and gentlemen, we are back for another episode of Duluth Conservative. Episode, 65, I think? Yeah, 65.
Yeah, 65, yeah.
All right. We are going to fly through tonight because we have an hour deadline. There's going to be a GOP governor debate that I want to watch tonight. I want to figure out who it is as a delegate. I'm a delegate of the Republican Party. Who it is I'm going to vote for to endorse for the governor. So tonight is going to be one of the last times I get to see them before I have to make up my mind. So that'll be good. This is the Duluth Conservative Show where we talk about issues that face us in Duluth, Minnesota, and then we go into national, international. And as tonight goes, we may or may not have time to do that. And I didn't look, Dave. Did you do a word of the day today?
I did find one thing that I thought was kind of interesting. Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's good because I didn't do any of that. And so shall we get started?
Yep. And we got too much to talk about and not enough time to do it.
Too little time. And I just want to do a real quick shout out to, I didn't want to say her name. My daughter, his birthday's today and it fluctuates with the year. So how old she is. So happy birthday, whatever that age is. So,
yeah.
All right. Let's start here. And we're going to talk about our top stories tonight. And I'll just go through a list of what our top stories are going to be. We're going to talk about this. The federal authorities charging 15 people in Minnesota today. Somebody jumping out of a 4-story building to get away from them, which is great. A little bit of drama today. We're going to talk about the Minnesota legislature, what they adjourned, and here's what they did and didn't pass. We're going to talk about some of the specific bills, and then a sit-in that happened at the Capitol, feeding our future ringleader being sentenced, a Minnesota fraudster being charged for childcare fraud, and just a couple other miscellaneous things. We'll go into those as we go. So let's get going, shall we?
Yep.
Let's talk about this. So federal authorities today did a press conference, and they are charging 15 people in Minnesota with fraud. The federal authorities announced it, and the National Fraud Enforcement Division said the defendants are accused of fraud schemes targeting $90 million in taxpayer money. This is the beginning of our work. The fraud here in Minnesota is shocking, McDonald said. This is Colin McDonald, Assistant Attorney General for the National Fraud Enforcement Division. Our cases today involve 7 different state-managed Medicaid programs that have been systematically pilfered by fraudsters who treated Minnesota-run programs as their personal piggy bank. So this is something I've been hearing quite a bit, which is Minnesota is the easiest place, or has been the easiest place, to commit fraud. And it's known not just in Minnesota, but worldwide. I was hearing that they went into refugee camps, and I can't remember which country. I think it was Egypt. We're saying, go to Minnesota. It's easy to steal there. Well, great.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. It's so nice to know.
Well, that's the way they set it up.
Right. So then apparently there's a man who jumped out of a 4th floor balcony window to invade investigators. And then there's just there's another link to that. That's pretty amazing. 4th floor, you're getting close to that terminal velocity thing where you don't make it. And I thought that was 5 floors. You got to be pretty desperate to jump out of a 4th floor balcony.
Right.
Surprised he didn't break his legs.
Yeah, even to be alive is pretty good. So.
Right. Let's see.
But even dead, that's it saves the prison time, I guess. So.
It does save us a lot of money, but we don't get any of that money back. Hopefully, we'll be able to get some of this money, the $90 million, back from this guy.
Right.
So it's just ongoing. We have more fraud stories coming up later. It's just incredible that if you pay taxes in this state, more than likely what you're doing is also paying somebody to commit fraud. And that's just unacceptable. And why are we paying taxes if they can't be good stewards of our money? Now, if we tried to go into the IRS and say, had my money stolen, I don't have to pay taxes, That's not the case, right? We'd be held accountable for that. So maybe it's time to hold some of these officials accountable for some of the massive fraud that we're seeing in Minnesota. And this is just the tip of the iceberg. I think there's going to be a lot more. And this is just Medicaid. We're even talking about election fraud in this state, which I'm going to go through another story a little later about. I think I put it on there about somebody that in LA or in California that was convicted or is pleading guilty to paying homeless people to sign up and vote. So
Right.
more to come on this.
So even if you file bankruptcy, you still owe taxes to the government.
Right.
So that's part of the one thing you can't get out of. So no matter what goes on, they get their cut. So
there was something else too. I can't remember what it was, but yeah, it's the IRS. You can't bankrupt away from. And there was one other thing.
yeah.
I just don't remember what it is. All right, so let's talk about the Minnesota legislature adjourned. And now, so they're done for the season. Now they're going to go into campaign mode. And this is what passed this year in the Minnesota legislature. So we'll do that, what passed, and then we'll go through what didn't pass. Just kind of a high level thing. So they did create the independent officer and inspector general. We did talk about that last week. There was a Minnesota high priority, which was good. The bill that got introduced in the House that stripped away all the power and made it basically report to the governor was bad. I don't hear people talking about that yet, so we will talk about that. $125 million in property tax relief that will be available via the property tax refund process. Minnesotans who get a property tax refund will see their homestead credit increased by 14.88% on taxes payable in 2026. I think there's a limit, though, of who can apply for that. There's a money limit, your income limit.
Yeah. Yeah, and even the tax relief I heard was a maximum of $175. So basically not helping.
Really?
Yeah.
$175, huh?
Yeah.
Well, it's better
So
than nothing, I guess.
It's half a tank of gas. So
So I bought this new truck, just on a side segue. I filled it up with gas, and this is the first time in my life I paid over $100 to fill up a tank of gas in my truck at Costco. So I was getting the cheaper gas, but I've got a big tank on this thing. $250 million in one-time vehicle tab fee reductions. So they were able to go through. Now the DFL in their trifecta increased the tab fees, right?
Yep.
Now they've been able to do a one-time, 1 year reduction so they can go on the campaign trail and say that they did something to fix the tab fees. And then next year, when it's no longer an election year, it just goes right back to normal. Right. Great job. Great job holding your feet to the fire on that one.
So next year they're going to buy you half a tank of gas. That's what your credit's going to be, half a tank of gas. So
right.
Because you still have to tabs. So ridiculous.
Up to $705 million to support Hennepin County Medical Center over several years. Many have warned that the level 1 trauma hospital has been on the brink of financial collapse. More funding was appropriated for their and other distressed hospitals. Well, if they're going to appropriate this funding, I want it clear that we will not give illegal aliens anything other than the care to get them stabilized and then transport them out of this country. If they go to the ER, they're not a legal citizen or not a legal resident here. They're here illegally in any way, and that means they snuck in, or they're extended their visa and they didn't go back. You stabilize them, and then put them back home, and they can take care of them there where they have their taxes, and that's what they do to take care of their people. They always complain about United States healthcare anyway, about how it's not socialized. So why would they want to be here anyway?
Right.
Put them back to where they want to be. Funding to upgrade IT systems used by local governments throughout Minnesota that administer various human services programs. I have no opinion on this. What about you?
I'm the same way. It all depends on what they're trying to upgrade.
Mm-hmm.
So we'd have to get into more specifics, and we could probably come up with a better opinion on that.
More than likely, it's necessary. It's probably older technology that's wearing down, and they just need to upgrade it. So. School safety legislation that includes the requirement for schools to use anonymous threat reporting systems. Funding for school-linked mental health services was also passed. Okay. But I'm going to go to the next one, then I'm going to go talk about the previous one. Increased security for Minnesota courthouses and the Minnesota State Capitol Complex. Additionally, lawmakers will now be able to obtain special protection if they receive credible threats of violence. Now, I'm not against that on the surface. Why is it that the Minnesota House and the courthouses get more protection than our schools do? They keep talking about wanting to protect children and stop school shootings. There's one good way to do that, and that is to get some people to protect our students. Get armed, hopefully, probably ex-military guys. You only need one because we're not talking about an assault of several people. We're talking about one person coming in.
Right.
And get them. So they did this. Unfortunately, the one crazy guy went to the Minnesota House Speaker, and he went after her and her husband and another one. Now that means that the Capitol gets more protection. The reps get more protection. I'm not against that, but you know what? Where is the school protection? Anonymous threat line doesn't help. It helps, but it's not enough. Get somebody there to protect our kids. If you want to stop these shootings, you've got to start protecting the kids. And it seems like if you're not doing that, it just may be because you don't care about it. You don't want it to stop, because that's the way you can do what you ultimately want, which is to take away our guns.
Right. So that you have that mosque shooting out in San Diego, I believe. What stopped those two lunatics? Well, the security guard at the front gate.
Right.
He lost his life because of it. However, he was able to stop them. A quick side note on that: I've seen a lot of unverified saying the shooters were trans, but I can't verify it. And the sites that saying that were not very good sites, so I don't really hold up too much. But it makes you wonder, because like the main three, they buried the story. You don't hear about it anymore.
Right.
So that kind of thinks, well, maybe it is true.
Right. The more they bury those things, the less it is aligning with their narratives, and they don't like that. So they just bury the story.
Right.
Let's see. Let's keep going. Limitations on social media accounts for children. Social media companies will need to check if the users are below 16. If so, those users will need to get a parental consent, and their accounts will not have addictive features such as infinite scroll. Mommy and daddy, government, please take care of my kids.
Correct.
And this is a way to get digital ID, and really is just to make sure we can track everybody that's online. This is which is really what they want.
Correct.
So look at never let a good tragedy go to waste. Never let something like this go to waste. We're going to protect our kids. How about this? Buy a firewall and block those sites, parent. And let's see. More staff at the Minnesota Attorney General's Medicaid Fraud Investigation Unit. Minnesota state agencies were also given broader authority to suspend payments to Medicaid service providers who are suspected of fraud. Good. Something's being done about fraud, finally.
Yeah.
$1.2 billion bonding bill for infrastructure projects such as bridges, roads, and wastewater treatment facilities throughout Minnesota. I know Duluth got a couple things out of that, which is good. It makes me wonder why we pay so much to the water companies when they can't budget for upgrades that happen, maybe in 100 years.
Right.
That we have to do these special bonding things every time. It's just like a bailout, but how can you not do it, right? Because you have to have clean water, you have to have roads. So it's almost like you neglect the things that you can't say no to.
Right.
All right, so that's what passed. Let's see what did not pass. A slate of gun control proposals that included a ban on federally licensed firearm dealers selling firearms such as AR-15s. That omnibus bill was a top DFL priority this season and passed the Senate. The full House never voted on it. Well, they did vote on it, but they voted on it in committees, and it never got past committee, so it didn't get voted on the House floor. But they'll be constantly telling you they never voted on it, and they never voted on it. That's not true.
It was voted on.
Right. Several times. It was like 7 or 8 times.
Yep.
If you're going to talk about the one that our representative in Duluth, Kozlowski, had a sit-in over the weekend for, that was one that was introduced, I believe, on Thursday or Friday and never got through a House committee, so they weren't going to vote on it. So there's procedures that you have to follow to get this stuff in, like it or not. If you don't like it, well, change the process, but that's the process.
Yeah.
Second thing, an omnibus bill that attempted to regulate federal immigration agents. That bill was also a top priority of Democrats and compiled various proposals pushed this year in response to the federal government's recent immigration enforcement efforts in Minnesota. So just a broad question. Why are you so interested in protecting illegal aliens in this state and not the people that live here? This should be the last thing. If you're concerned about this at all, this should be way down the line of stuff that you're concerned about as a legislator in Minnesota. Nope. This is top. This is what they spend their time on. This is what Kozlowski does. She goes and tried to teach people how to avoid ICE agents and to have rallies to stop the ICE agents. This is what she focused on. Why are we voting for these people? This also did not pass legislation that would require dedicated pornography websites to verify a person's age before they can go to the website. This is digital ID. If you want to filter these things out, it's really easy. And if you can't figure it out, talk to a 12-year-old, because they may not tell you how to do it because they don't want to lose that access. But
but you had that one Democrat. She wanted open pornography for children because that was a learning tool for transsexuals.
Well, it's funny because it's important if it's this, but it's not important. So, it depends on what you want to accomplish underneath the covers. Constitutional amendment that to ask voters if term limits should be applied to the office of Minnesota governor and Minnesota lieutenant governor. Not the highest, not the highest priority. I think they should be not serving more than 2 or 3 terms. It seems like nobody has served more than 3 terms because they get voted out after the second time. So,
right, at least for governor, yeah.
Constitutional amendment to ask voters to place a so-called equal rights amendment. They're doing this again, equal rights amendment in the Minnesota Constitution. That amendment would enshrine abortion and transgenderism in Minnesota Constitution. Geez, I wonder why that didn't pass a split house.
Right.
And
so what's going to get passed if they get trifecta back. So make sure that doesn't happen.
Right. Yeah, it's right there. And this equal rights amendment, read it sometime and see what it actually says. It's quota systems and DEI completely 100%.
Right.
I wonder what they're, what world do they live in? How do they think we live? Is it like, do they think we're living in the 1700s or something like that? I mean, I don't understand where there isn't equality everywhere right now. Somebody could please explain that to me. I would love it.
Yeah, they've never been able to give an example of inequality.
Right.
But they want to push it anyways.
Yeah, they want to have this in there, but they're going to slide some stuff in that, doesn't really matter to it. And they're going to do it so that they can, slide other things that have nothing to do with it with a funny name or a fancy name.
Right.
And then legislation to enroll Minnesota in a federal program. They didn't like the federal government.
No.
That would allow taxpayers to receive a tax credit for donating to private or public schools. That doesn't sound bad. The governor could unilaterally enroll Minnesota in the program without legislation. Well, they're not going to do that because they don't like private schools. They don't like people learning at home. They want everybody through the
Right.
system so they can grind them in the same way, all of them, and indoctrinate them just like they like to. So absolutely, he will never do it.
No.
Okay. I got something that is talking about the sit-in. I got a couple of them. HF 5140 is what they did their sit-in about. And it was tied 67-67, so it never got out there. But this one thing is, one of their own, Representative Aisha Gomez, looked at a Republican colleague square in the eye and told him to go effing kill himself. Isn't that nice?
Yeah.
That's
She denies
lovely.
it, but yeah.
Or I think they have it on video. If she didn't say it,
Yeah.
then that's bad. So this is an alleged say it. I thought they had it right on video where you could hear it, but I don't know.
Well, until she gets convicted in court, then it's all alleged. So even if you can see it on video, it's still alleged
I suppose.
until she's found guilty in court. So,
and yeah, that sit-in for the gun thing. You know, why aren't they talking about the trans kid that shot up the school? Why is it about the gun and not the person that was on heavy medications and being trained in their brain that there's something wrong with the world? And where were they at in the stage? Were they at the point where they had transitioned and they regretted it, or was it at the point where they found out that even though they do all this stuff, it doesn't make their life perfect, like they're being told? Where were they at in that process? Maybe we need to stop doing that.
Which goes back to the mass shooting. If these two kids were actually trans, were they on these drugs?
Right.
If they are, now we're starting to get a correlation between trans mass murderers and these drugs.
Well, think about what these drugs are doing. They're fundamentally changing your body chemistry.
Right. So at least we'd have a correlation between the two, so we could stop prescribing these drugs until we find, till we fix the problem. That would sounds like it would fix the problem,
Well, I think we need to psychologically counsel these kids anyway, because if you think that putting on a dress makes you a girl, I got bad news for you. You're still going to grow a beard until you get these medications. These medications are life. I went and saw an Elvis impersonator. He looked like Elvis. He sang like Elvis. He dressed like Elvis, but that's not Elvis. At the end of the day, he takes the costume off and he's just back to who he was. It's the same thing with this. You can dress like what you think a girl should dress like, which I don't know any girls that dress like the ones, the people I see. You wear your hair like you think a girl should. That's all stereotyping stuff, though. Girls can wear their hair anyway. They have short hair, they have long hair, makeup, no makeup, dress, pants, shirt. Girls can be anything. And I don't understand why you think wearing a dress and putting false boobs on is going to make you a girl. It's not.
Right.
All right. So let's move on to the next thing. Feeding Our Future ringleader Aimee Bock has been sentenced. Prosecutors asked for 50 years. So the interesting thing about this was, I think if this is her lawyers are asking for time served, basically.
Right.
They don't want any ramifications. And she's the ringleader, but is it really only stop at her? Is she the mastermind or
Right.
Is there a bigger problem, like maybe with the government covering some of this stuff up?
Well, yeah, because they don't want to admit that they were completely wrong, and just allowed it.
Right. And they don't want to take any accountability.
Right. But today, did you see the note I threw in there about what happened today with her?
No. What is it?
Aimee
Aimee Bock, according to CBS News, giving 500 months plus has to repay $243 million.
Yes. So her sentence was 41 and a half years, plus she owes $243 million. So of that 243, what's your guess of how much we're going to get back?
That would be zero, Dave.
That would be my guess too. So
what is the number zero?
Maybe that should have been our word of the day.
Yeah. Yes. What is zero?
The number 0.
Next one is a Minnesota fraudster is charged for child care fraud. Fahima Muhammad received $3.67 million for her daycare and tried to escape America prior to being apprehended. So, boy, who was in charge of all this that got taken advantage of so bad? Are these the ones so I was sitting at my desk today right before the show, and I got a call from somebody with a thick Indian accent. And I said, what part of India are you from, north or south? And he said, I'm from Arizona. It's okay. And then he tried to sell me life insurance, and that was the end of the conversation. But are these the people that were in charge of it? Are these the ones that are calling up? Oh, I got to get this guy on my computer because I have a virus, and give him my password and social security number.
Right.
Here's an interesting one. I want to put this one on here because it's this is a huge segue away from Minnesota and fraud and everything. This was something on Face the Nation, and the host said, how long is the clip? Does it say?
It was 2 minutes.
Make it a little smaller, and then go ahead and play it.
You want to see the beginning or the end?
Go ahead and just play it from the beginning.
Louisiana, where Senator Bill Cassidy lost in this 3-way primary. The president, the leader of your party who wanted this redistricting, has also been directly involved in some of these primary races, picking candidates. He came out hard against Cassidy. He's also now focusing in on Congressman Thomas Massie of Kentucky, who has taken votes in opposition to the president, including for the release of the Epstein files. I mean, is the message here for Republicans that if you dissent from the president, he's going to take you down?
Okay, stop right there for a second.
Well, it's one of the many reasons.
Okay, so her premise is that she's asking this question. Her premise is the guy who's in charge of the party, basically, because he's the president of the United States. So he's by de facto the leader of the party.
Yeah.
If you're taking votes to actively stop his legislation he's trying to get through, are you shocked that he would go and try to primary you out, which is the democratic process, not the King process, the democratic process? He would be involved with that to get rid of people that are against him so they can get people in that will actually pass the legislation. He's not removing them. He's helping primary them out by advocating for their opponent if he likes their opponent. So that's the premise. So she seems to have a problem with that, which is ridiculous to me to begin with, because that's what you're supposed to do as a leader of a party. And that's why Governor Walz is the leader of the Democratic Party, but you'd never know it because it just seems like in turmoil right now. Okay, so now listen to this guy's response.
Margaret, why we need to open primaries up in all 50 states. Another cause that Tom and I are behind. Over half the states in this country have closed primaries, meaning that if you're a registered independent, you are excluded from voting in 50% of elections. And let's put this in a context.
So what he's saying is we need to open up the primary so anybody can vote to see who goes through. And he uses independents as the group that is being excluded, but it's not the case. What he wants is the Democrats to come in and help shape who the primary is for the Republicans. That's really what he wants. Yeah. And then he also has the statement that says, oh, but they're being excluded from half of the elections. In what way? You're being excluded from picking the Republican candidate. You're an independent. You can have your own caucus and your own primary for your independent candidates. So you're not being excluded from anything. You don't get to choose who they're going to endorse, but at the same time, you know what? In the general election, you can vote for whoever you want. You can vote for the person that doesn't win the endorsement. That's your right as an American citizen. Again, democracy, right? That's a slight slim of democracy we have here. We're a representative republic, but we do have democratic elections. So go ahead and let's finish off this guy.
Yeah, but Trump is trying to kill democracy.
Oh yeah, right. Exactly. By following all the rules.
A 98-year-old World War II veteran who stormed the beaches of Normandy
Okay,
same
stop.
civilization. Who
He's going to
registered-
go into an emotional argument in here to talk about a World War II vet that stormed the beaches of Normandy to try to make his point that Democrats should be able to basically come in and choose who the Republican candidate is that's going to be on the election, so that if they lose the seat to the Republican, at least they've gotten the Republican that they want to have in place. So go ahead.
Right.
independent in the land of independence, which we're celebrating 250 years of, and in half of the states of this country, including, unfortunately, our home state here in Pennsylvania, if you register independent, you're told you're not welcome to vote in half of elections. That is insane. And not only is it an injustice, Margaret, it has a terrible corrosive effect on the floor of the House. Tom and I see it all the time. We call it the vote no, hope yes crowd. They go to the House floor wanting to support a policy, knowing that policy is the right thing to do. But because they live in a closed primary state, and 18% of Americans vote in primaries, they're going to the House floor thinking about 18% of their electorate instead of 100% of their electorate.
Okay, stop.
So closed
So I'm going to do a straw man argument, and then I'm going to put out statistics saying that it's unfair, but it's not. All of his arguments are just completely wrong. This is Face the Nation. This used to be a legitimate show. As far as I remember, they actually talked about serious things. Nobody is going against this guy. Is a clown. He makes emotional arguments. He doesn't back up his stuff, and he's making wild accusations that aren't true. So it's incredible. So that's why I wanted to point this out. This is what the news that people are consuming too. And if you're not critically thinking about it, you're thinking, yeah, you're being denied to the election. You're not. You just don't get to vote in the primary of the party that you're not part of. All right. So we can close him down now. And he was complaining that there was creating gerrymandering on that. We should probably put gerrymandering up as our word of the day next week. I know some people don't know what it is, and I had to look it up at one point too. So
I think we already went over gerrymandering as far as our word of the day.
yeah, we can do it again.
Yeah, of course. Absolutely.
Okay. We are 30 minutes in. We're going to be done in 30 minutes, and we're not even through the top story. So we're going to keep going. We're going to see where we get to. California woman was federally charged with paying individuals, including homeless people in LA's Skid Row, to register to vote. That's just kind of there's not much more to say about that. That is just basically what you get when you are buying votes. So she's been charged with it. So everybody that says that voting fraud does not happen, you are wrong. At best case, you just don't know about it. This is an interesting one. I wanted to talk about this today. After 15 years of Democrats promising that climate change is going to destroy the planet, the United Nations top climate committee just admitted that their own projections were wrong. So there's a couple things. There's this news story, and there's a post by Trump. But now it's going to be very interesting to see what happens. Now that they're saying, there was a guy at the UN saying in 2026, there would be no human life on this planet because it was going to be wiped out because of climate change.
Right.
And that was 10 years ago. He said that at the UN, top official at the UN. And look where we're at now. Now, one thing you got to notice too is with the rise of people wanting to build data centers, all of a sudden we don't have a climate crisis anymore. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah. Is it a coincidence or not? Just seems to, all the rich people, because Gates was big into climate change and he's big into AI, and they don't mix. So,
well, here's something I was talking about today. I just told somebody today, Barack Obama, and I'm not making a comment about him. I will make comments about him, but this is just because he was the Democratic president. He was all about climate change. Has two properties I know of. One is on the beach in Oahu, and one is on the beach at Martha's Vineyard. You do not buy beachfront property if you believe the oceans are going to rise. It would be stupid. And he's not a stupid guy. So you don't believe it. And Al Gore, they've made so much money and fleeced so much money from the world's population because of this. It was the biggest scam I think has ever been perpetrated against the citizens of this planet. It's incredible.
Yeah. And then we talked about Al Gore last week about him. Oh, now everyone's going to freeze to death.
You're right.
So even he 100 changed 180 degrees, and now he's on a different bandwagon.
Right.
You know,
In the 70s,
'cause-
we're going to have an ice age. In the 90s, we're going to have global warming. Then they changed it to climate change because that covers everything. Now it's not a problem anymore. We were all taken advantage of. I've been fighting it since the beginning. I think it's a silly problem. Trying to get carbon out of the atmosphere. What is it? 3%? 0.3%? I can't remember how much carbon is in the
it was like 0.3. Yeah. But if we get rid of carbon out of the atmosphere, all the trees will die. So
we're dead. Yeah,
we're dead. Yeah.
It.
So
all right, last thing in the top story is 35 minutes in, 25 minutes left. There's a stunning statement. President Trump has dropped a bombshell that George Soros and his shadow network will be investigated under RICO charges. Trump has revealed that Soros has been funding, training, and radicalizing young extremists to unleash chaos in the United States. This has been happening for years. He is a billionaire that has wanted to take this country down. Oh, and by the way, George Soros is a guy that he helped the Nazis out. So he's that old, and that's what he's like. So why would anybody trust him? I don't know. And he's Jewish. He's Jewish, and he helped the Nazis out. What the heck?
But or is this another Ilhan Omar investigation where we've got her nailed to the wall, we're gonna throw her in jail, and that was 50 years ago.
We're waiting.
Yeah. So, but we're into that. Well, when it happens, then we'll talk about it. Otherwise,
right.
Yeah.
All right. So now let's move on to Duluth news. And so Mount Royal shopping, the grocery store out there in Woodland, I want to say an 81-year-old man was at the urinal, and a 45-year-old man came out from the stall and started hitting him on the back of the head with a hammer. This was last year, May 2024. He kept beating him even when he was on the ground. He put his hand in his mouth, and he has now been found incompetent to stand trial. So he's going to be basically not guilty, incompetent, and he will be in detainment until they decide that he is no longer a threat, or they no longer want to take care of him, or people forget about it, and then he'll be released into the public again.
Right.
If there was, I wish there was some indication that said that because he's been found not guilty by reason of insanity, that he will be held for at least this many years before he can be even deemed ready to go back.
Yeah.
81-year-old man probably stormed the beaches of Normandy. Probably not at 81.
No.
Probably was in Vietnam, though, or Korea. But standing there, you can't even take a leak anymore without getting attacked.
Right.
And Mount Royal, you would not think of any crime in that area, right? That's not a place you're like, well, I got to kind of watch myself.
Yes.
Just crazy.
And we're right back to, and we'll be discussing this longer too, is our cops do a good job stopping this. It's our prosecutors and our mayors and our, elected officials that are letting these people go. Our cops do a great job. It's the judges that we need to start somehow trading out for legitimate ones.
Yeah, and I'm okay if the guy really is insane, but I want to hear that he's not going back in the general public then, maybe ever.
Right.
So the difference between being jailed or being found guilty of by reason of insanity is basically the care you get or where you're housed, I guess. But he can't go out in public. He's 45. He's still got a long time left where he can hurt people. And I would appreciate it if they would cover some of that stuff instead of just, so he's just being detained. Because that could be next month they could release him. If he was in Minneapolis, he'd have been out the same day, probably.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, definitely.
Next story. Fond du Lac Tribal and Community College has been awarded a $9.2 million community and innovation grant from the Bush Foundation to support an 8-year Ojibwe language revitalization initiative. This is pretty cool. I was thinking for years to build an app that would help just learn it like a Rosetta Stones thing, but it would be like flashcards. This is clearly a little better than my idea, but this is good. It's not coming from the government. It's coming from a foundation. This is exactly where we should be getting this money from. It's a complicated language. I've heard it spoken. It's lots and lots of vowels. If you look at the Hawaiian language, I think they only have 19 letters. They must have like 50, or they only use 7, and they're just, the words are like a mile long.
Well, I mean, then Klodowski is probably going to put an end to it because comes from the Bush, the Bush, which are Republicans. So she can't have that, even though it's helping her tribe out, or that tribe. So
it says here that the official said the initiative would build on the college's 2-year Ojibwe language degree and explore the creation of a bachelor's degree program in Ojibwe Moan. That's a long word just to begin with here.
Yeah.
So that's pretty cool. I mean, that's good that they can keep that language alive. I hate to see any language go dead, and especially when it's unique to this area. I mean, yeah, let's keep it going.
Right.
Oh, God. Here's a good one. Duluth Police are investigating a stabbing that occurred in the 200 block of East 1st Street Wednesday morning. At approximately 10 a.m. Wednesday, May 20th, Duluth Police responded to a report of a stabbing. Upon arrival, officers located a male victim with a stab wound. He was transported to a local hospital. A short time later, officers located the suspected individual, later identified as 23-year-old Chase Covington. He'll be in the St. Louis County Jail pending charges for second-degree assault. So Chase Covington, I took a look at, and guess what? I found a little case from 2023 where he walked up to somebody with a baseball bat and started hitting him after he demanded money. Again in Duluth on 2nd Avenue East and 1st Street. So now we've got a repeat offender who's a violent criminal. Yeah. He's attacked somebody with a bat, and now it sounds like he might have stabbed somebody. What are we going to do about this guy? So we'll be following this story to find out what's going to happen to this guy. What kind of punishment is he going to receive? And hats off to the police department again for doing a good job and taking care of this stuff. But if they're just going to release him again, it's just going to wait until the next time. Maybe next time you have a bigger weapon. I don't know, a stick with a nail in it.
Right. And really hurt somebody.
Right. And the last story I have for this area, and this isn't about Duluth, but it's about Hermantown, is data centers. There's a good article here. Data centers, when the decision is too big for a city. And it kind of goes into a little talk about how, you know, these little cities, and Hermantown's not a big city. Duluth isn't that big, but it's a much bigger city than Hermantown is. The city council is making decisions that's going to have fundamental changes to the city's structure. It talks about how, like for this example in Hermantown, if they get this data center, Google's going to pay for a bunch of infrastructure, but at the same time, you know what? Hermantown has to maintain that infrastructure. And so that's an ongoing cost in perpetuity. And then there was also a thing about their, I think, 38-year property tax abatement. And the company hasn't even been around for 38 years yet. Right. And it's a good article. I'm going to put a link to it out here, but it's a well-written article about, is this too big for these guys to deal with? Is this a decision that should be handled at a very small local level, or does it have to get bigger players involved? I would not argue outright to say that this should be more of a state issue as well. Not saying that the city doesn't have any say in it or has decision-making, but this should also be something that has to pass through state gates before it can be put anywhere in our state.
I think that's why they're going after smaller cities, because they know that they can't really handle a decision like that. So it's, you know, so you go after the small guys who can't deal with it. You know?
Or they're easily swayed with money and infrastructure, and they don't know that you have to say no. These guys are coming in trying to make the best deal for their company, which is their job, Morally
Yeah.
or not, you can argue that decision, but their job is to make the best deal for their company. The job of the people that are in the government are to make the best deal for the people of Minnesota and the city they live in. And if you don't elect people that can make those kind of decisions or make those kind of negotiations and know how to say no to something if it's not in the best interest of the people and it's negatively impacting, then what you're going to have is a lot of bad things happening and nobody's going to take responsibility for it. By the time it gets out there, the people that were involved with letting it happen are gone.
Right.
So it's an interesting article. We'll post it, like I said, into the live chat when we're done at some point. And I'll take a read to it. All right, 15 minutes left, Dave. We're on a clock and we're going to go through.
Yep.
We'll talk about Alicia Kozlowski's co-authored bills that were too late because they came in right at the end and they don't go through committee. HF 5152, a new statutory process allowing individuals to change or add sex indicators on birth records, death records, and marriage records. So she wants to go retrofit and change birth certificates.
For trans people.
Well, for
trans
anybody, but
people.
presumably for that.
And
It also
then
updates marriage.
records.
Sorry?
Yeah, it's keep going. You can go.
It also updates marriage license and certificate requirements and classifies prior versions of amended records as private data. So change it and hide it. I see.
Correct. Yeah.
I love the transparency of the No Kings rally people.
Yeah.
HF 5149 creates statewide restrictions on civil immigration enforcement in courts, healthcare facilities, schools, post-secondary institutions. Oh, shut up. She doesn't want federal agents to take illegal aliens out of our state and put them back where they should be, back to their home country where they pay taxes there and they get tax benefits there and they can deal with it and make their lives better there. If they want to come here, do it legally.
Yeah, she's protecting illegals, making locals, the Americans, unsafe.
Yes. And HF 5159 sharply restricts non-ferrous copper nickel mining in the Rainy River headwaters by imposing a zero increase sulfate standard, prohibits permits unless sulfate levels remain unchanged, and creates a $500 million civil penalty plus mandatory shutdowns if sulfate increases occur. So what she's doing is trying to stop mining in the Duluth complex up north.
Yeah.
HF 5161 significantly tightens Minnesota's regulation on carbon dioxide pipelines by prohibiting route permits for most new CO2 pipelines. It blocks pipelines longer than 1,000 feet and any pipeline that crosses public waters.
So once again,
say no.
Stopping mining. Yeah.
We're not smart enough. We don't know how to do things. We can't do it. Say no. Everything is no until it comes to spending. Then it's yes, yes, yes. How do you think that money gets generated to actually pay for some of the crazy programs that you want, Leash?
Yeah.
Okay. I don't think we're going to get through half of this stuff. I'm going to cherry pick now because like I said, we have a governor's debate coming up for the Republican Party to see who's going to get the endorsement. I'm a delegate. I need to vote on this, and I still need more information because I think we have a lot of good candidates, and I want to make sure we get the right one. So, Minnesota news: ICE agents charged for pointing gun at another car will turn himself in on Thursday. So Bloody Mary Moriarty has finally figured out what it means in her office that she can actually charge people for things. Good for her. Maybe she'll start charging criminals now.
Yeah. Instead of ICE agents.
The federal government pushes back on the Hennepin County. These actions by Minnesota sanctuary politicians are unlawful and nothing more than a political stunt. So that's a response to what she was doing there. Although there's declining auto thefts in Minneapolis, apparently, a man died from injuries sustained trying to thwart Minneapolis auto thieves. And here's something that you may not hear. The Minneapolis Police Crime Dashboard shows 2,258 auto thefts so far this year. And this is Minneapolis through May 17th, compared to 1,830 during the same period in 2025. So they're getting much worse, probably because of no cash bail, not charging them, letting them out the same day. And then they just go back and probably doing it 3 or 4 times a day now.
Yeah. So we're back to the same principle. Our cops are doing a good job.
Yes.
Our elected DEAs are doing a horrible job.
Right. MPD Bureau Chief Kashina Martin cited following crash with light rail train in Minneapolis. After reviewing cameras, the car was driving on the LRT tracks and was in the intersection against the traffic signals when the crash occurred. So she's from Baltimore, and she was hired in her civilian employee position by Minneapolis Police Chief Brian O'Hara in May last year. Brian O'Hara is also not from Minnesota. So he's from outstate, and he's pulling in people from Baltimore and other states, and apparently they don't know how to drive. She probably thought the train had already gone by. You know why? She could see the tracks. So she probably thought it already went by.
Yeah. Yeah, that's quite a dad joke. That's a dad joke, definitely.
Sandy, wherever you are, I hope you're really joke that's stuck with me since 1984.
Right. Yeah.
Another story. Keith Ellison refuses to publish alleged complaints against pro-life pregnancy centers. AG Keith Ellison says pregnancy resource centers are potentially deceptive, but it's his office that's refusing to provide public records on any actual complaints against the center. So this is Keith Ellison. I think he's about as dirty as you can get. He makes Tim Walz look like a choir boy. And I'm going to go with this last one. Minnesota passes prediction markets ban. And I'm not particularly confident to talk about what this is, but it is basically about hedge betting, I think. And it impacts the Indian casinos somehow.
Well, they've come out with prediction markets are basically anything. It doesn't have to do with sports. It can be with one of the predictions was when will Maduro get picked up by the military and get arrested?
Oh, so it's anything. It's basically betting on anything.
Correct. And that's what a prediction market is. So them banning it because, one, they don't understand it. Two, they're still trying to figure out how to make money off of it. So
right. This doesn't sound like something we control. We have to get away from, we can't allow that.
Yeah, basically, yes.
Okay. We're at 8 minutes. We're going to block it right at the top of the hour. So I'm going to keep ramming them through here. I saw this thing and I'm just going to post a link to it. We're not going to go through and show this, but it's about Gen Z not being able to read. So it's kind of a chilling video. If you look at it, the guy puts up a piece of paper and it has words in it. You read it and it doesn't really, it makes sense, but it's kind of a stupid, fluffy thing to read, but it has some intricate words, and the kids, they cannot even sound out the words that they're trying to read. And they have absolutely no critical thinking skills. And this is something that's going to be coming more and more with AI. As you have to figure something out, you ask how to do it as opposed to figuring out how to do it. There is a lot to be learned when you're pounding through in your head to try to figure out, this, when you're trying to fix a car, you got to try a lot of stuff before it works. That's how you learn.
Right.
Here's another one, and don't hold me to these numbers, but it says here that 50% of all murders in Deep Blue, Fairfax County, Virginia, were committed by illegal aliens. If true, that is amazing.
Yeah.
50% of the murders were committed by illegal aliens, people that should not have been in the country to begin with. That's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. Sweden's going through the same problem with their sexual assaults went up 860%, and they're kind of trying to figure out why that happened. Oh, really? You just allowed millions of illegals to come in. So
I'm going to skip over this, but it basically is Bob Ferguson going after the people's pensions, retirees. And that happened here in Duluth a few years ago. I'm not saying it's the current administration. It was several years ago now, maybe 10 or 15, where they just started going after the retirees' benefits. And there was a big lawsuit against it. So yeah, it's easy because, hey, they're retired now. So they don't really provide much use to us. So that we might as well just take all their money that they worked their whole lives for. Seems legit. Texas Children's Hospital must create country's first detransition center under legal settlement with state. So they were performing transgender surgeries, although it was illegal. And this settlement is they have to now pay a bunch of money and create a detransition center to undo the things that they did.
Makes sense.
That's good.
Yeah.
Boy, this is like headline news. Bam, bam, bam. Donald Trump has demanded a clause that would amount to a veto over any future Chinese or Russian investments in Greenland. So remember when he was making that whole stink about invading Greenland? Well, that got their attention. And now what he's saying is that's a precious resource to us. It's a very, very big security risk for us to have anybody else going into Greenland. So if you don't want us to take it over, let's get some concessions. So this is how you make a deal, is you shock and then pull back if you need to, with knowing that maybe he's going to do it anyway. You never know.
Well, he did something with Greenland because now we can put military bases there. So he made some sort of an agreement with the Greenland people. So to not take the place over. So this might be part of that. I don't know, but he did something.
Okay. I got 30 seconds for each one coming up here. For every 5 skilled trade workers who retire, only 2 will replace them. So if you're young, at this point right now, it's good to be in a trade school and getting that job. So sooner or later, it's going to flip around and there's going to be too many people that can do that than their jobs, but that's not the way it is right now. If you get in now, get yourself established, that's good. You got more experience than the young guys and you're going to have the job a lot longer. So that's just some advice.
Yeah.
Sewell CBC attempt to extort the SEC, ACC, and NCAA on redistricting issue. So I'll just briefly talk about this. This Black Caucus group said, well, if you're not going to stand up and shout about redistricting things that we think are bad, then we're not going to support you and not going to get you your money you want. So this is like extortion to me. This seems really, really, really sketchy. I'll put a link in this thing. And I'm going to skip the next one. We'll go on international news. I just want to make sure I hit on some of these things. There was a kid named Henry Nowak, and they have footage of him, 18-year-old. He's gasping for air and begging for help while telling officers he had just been stabbed. And he had been stabbed by what looked like an illegal immigrant or an immigrant into the country. He wasn't a British kid. And the officers just said, I don't think you have, mate. Well, he died of his stabbing injury. There's the kid right there. And they were arresting him. They were arresting him for like anti-immigration sentiment or something like that.
Yeah, it's a hate crime over there now.
So yeah, they were arresting him for racial abuse. He had been stabbed. It's UK, man, I tell you. And to end the anti-immigration protests in where the Dutch are, the Dutch police have received orders to start threatening mothers that their children will be taken away. So it's basically they go up to them and go, if you don't stop protesting, we're going to take your kids. So read the article.
Yeah.
Let's see. And then boys who, I don't want to say the word because we're going to get ratioed even worse than we are, assaulted 2 girls sexually in Forest Town, spared any jail. 15-year-old boy was sentenced to youth rehabilitation for 3 years. Wow. Boy, that'll teach him that he can get away with it.
Yeah. That's in the UK also. So
I hesitate to read the article headline on this next one. School board member who hugged a teen was called her hot is charged with assault. Well, you shouldn't be hugging a teen and calling her hot. So I got mixed feelings about that.
Well, he side hugged her. He was sitting in a chair and she was sitting in a chair and he put her arm around her and called her hot because of what she said, not because of how she looked. And then he could possibly go to jail for assault, for sexual assault. So the two kids will not go to jail for raping and filming their sexual assault. However, this guy might, because he in camera in front of a room of during a school board meeting, he could go to jail because he called her hot. So the rule is don't talk to women.
Don't talk to kids. All right, I'm going to wrap up here. I'm just going to say this last thing. We're going to skip the word of the day. I'm going to say that the offshore windmills that they use to pump clean energy are killing whales. And I don't care what you think about green energy. I don't care what you think about climate change. If you find out something is killing whales, are you still going to support that? Or should we start talking about taking those things out? Because it is being proved here that they're killing the whales. So, all right. I got to go.
And they're talking about the windmills are killing birds at millions. Yes. So it's time to get rid of the windmills.
Yeah. Okay. I got to go. I got to watch this debate. Thanks for joining us. Sorry, Shaka. Nice 60-minute show. How can you hate that? So next week we will be back. Maybe we'll do a little longer. Maybe we'll stick it at an hour. But until next week, I am Sean.
I'm Dave.
And this has been the Duluth Conservative. Thanks for joining us, and watch the political Republican governor debate if you get a chance. Thanks.
It's time.